Mhm.
All right, I'm very excited about this next part.
I'm also excited.
We have got One Piece. Bradley finished Arlong Park and got
Hey,
into
peace.
Town a little bit.
Yeah.
Bradley,
Uh
talk to us. You took some notes to guide us
oh
along.
you know I took notes.
Hell yeah.
So where we left off last week, um, for all of our three listeners out there,
We
um,
love y'all.
yeah, hey Jamal, thinking about you.
Hey,
Uh,
actually, people seem to like the One Piece talk last week.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, how could you not? So, where we left off last week was our crew kind of had their big rendezvous, and Luffy busted into Arlong Park, and he's like, which one of you guys is Arlong?" So, we're getting into the fight that
The
we've been
action.
building up.
Yes.
Yeah, we've spent probably 20 to 30 chapters, kind of having an amazing build up, by the way, to
Yes.
this fight that we're finally about to jump into. And much like can be expected of One Piece, the fighting is not just fighting, it is also character development, and we have some good stuff to say about it.
Hell yeah, in One Piece, it's all build up, but then the fight itself is a storytelling, and especially like some of the recent fights tell really beautiful stories, and that's just always been a One Piece thing.
Yeah. All right. So I can just kind of go chronologically with my notes as we head into this. Um, I might try to give like a little play by play just so people know where we are, what we're talking about. Luffy goes in. Um, Arlong's okay. Who the hell are you? Blah blah blah. Luffy takes out some of the littler fishmen that we don't care about,
Mm-hmm.
and we are left with Arlong and his three officers.
Yes.
Um, and it's kind of funny how Luffy removes himself from the battle temporarily.
He always
Where,
finds a way.
yeah, we have to sometimes we kind of have to find a way to remove Luffy temporarily from the fight. And I had talked about this back during, I think, Usopp's
Yes.
introductory arc. And we find really entertaining ways to do that, where Luffy does this really cool attack. But in order to do it, he anchors himself by burying his foot in the ground,
Which is really
and
dumb
you
because
can't get back out.
he could easily crack the ground with his fist, but what? It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really care about that.
It's all
So
gags, anyways.
yeah, and so he gets stuck in the ground. Arlong throws him in the water, and then we move on to kind of our three. I was about to say side fights, but I wouldn't even call them side fights. They are like my favorite parts of the arc.
And they get a
It,
lot of focus too.
yeah. To me, they feel like the fights you get right before the UFC like title bout or main event kind of
Mm,
deal.
sure.
They're still really good. It's just like not.
They're the WrestleMania fights leading up to the championship belt at the end or whatever.
Yeah.
So, um, you know, me being unwise, Bradley, going into these three fights where it's the officers versus Zoro, Sanji, and Usopp, I was like, okay, I'm excited, but I really hope this doesn't end up kind of being like Pearl, where we're just kind of fluffing out the arc a little bit, and I
Hmm.
don't care about the fight. Fortunately, it ended up being awesome, and here's why. Well, there's actually a lot of reasons why. That's the majority of my notes.
Good.
So, um, one thing I'd like to touch on every episode is kind of Oda's philosophy that he's stated, I think, more than once, where in One Piece, it's less about killing the bad guy and more about challenging and shattering their worldview. Um, and
Yes.
I think I got to talk a lot about that with Krieg last week, but I'm really excited about it here. So Arlong's kind of big philosophy that we want to challenge this arc is that humans are inferior, fishmen are the superior beings. Um, and I think what challenge it is that the most is these three fights. At the end of last week, I was like, oh, I would kind of like,
Nami
I'd
to
kind
get
of
the
like
final hit or whatever.
yeah, I was like, I kind of want like a normal human, not necessarily a rubber man, to get the spotlight. And Luffy does end up finishing off Arlong, but like that doesn't even matter. Like I'm extremely satisfied with what we got because what we see are three normal ass humans
Hmm.
defeat his 3 strongest officers, especially Usopp, who
Man, Usopp's
we're
fight's
gonna.
so good.
Oh my god, yeah, I have a few paragraphs on that. So I feel like Oda's really sticking true to his philosophy, where it's like we need to destroy what this guy's all about. We're gonna give him solid proof that no, these humans are kicking your superior fisherman's ass. So chew on that, Arlong. So let's see. Blah blah blah. They start fighting. Talked about that. Okay, so I don't have as much to say about Zoro and Sanji's fights as I do about Usopp's. They're very great. We kind of see Zoro stick to his resolve not to lose to anybody until he fights Mihawk again. These are it's just genuinely good action.
I'll talk a little bit about these.
Go for it.
To fill for you. So Zoro's fight, he gets to fight Hachi, which Hachi's the one redeemable person in that crew. Like you can tell he's kind of a goofball.
Yeah, he's kind of funny.
and knowing some stuff from later, like he's not the worst of the crew. He's all right.
He's very hospitable. Like Zoro comes up and he's really just like, yeah, oh yeah, okay, and just like does everything to make Zoro happy, and
which results into Zoro killing his crew, which is, man, I could see why he'd be angry. Just the idea of an octopus man with 6 swords and being able to stick to walls just gives that fight like a nice flow to it. It's the most straightforward fight, but like you said, Zoro vowed last arc to never lose again, because that is the only thing that would be fitting for a pirate king. And he's really sticking to it this arc, where he's bleeding, he's getting headbutted, his wounds are opening up. Injuries in One Piece, these characters are really tough, but the injuries from previous arcs do show up in current arcs, and they have that kind of relationship where, like, Zoro is nerfed this arc because he took such a beating last arc, and he has to work through it. And you get that awesome scene where Johnny and Yosaku throw him his swords, and he does streaming wolf swords through Hachan's, like, 6 swords, and it's just such a cool scene and such a cool attack.
Is very cool.
Very cool. And then for Sanji's fight, I think that's my favorite fight of the 3, possibly. It's up there with Usopp, because he has an ulterior goal, which gives the fight a little bit of spice. He jumps into the water knowing that he's outmatched, right? But it's the only way that he can free Luffy. Which the thing they do with Luffy, where they have to stretch his head up through the water. Really fun way to solve that. Also shows you that while underwater, paramecia type devil fruits, they still keep their weird bodies. They just don't have any control or power to actually move.
They're like comatose or rendered useless.
Yeah.
That was kind of wild, because whenever Luffy initially got thrown into the water, I was like, oh my god, how are they gonna have him not die? But the solution was such like a simple and obvious thing, but it's still so cool at the same time.
Well, and it kind of just shows for Luffy, like it's like he is made out of rubber. Like that doesn't change regardless. Like it's not like an ability he activates. He is just like a rubber man.
He is a rubber man.
Yeah.
And then for Sanji's fight also, they're both fighting with kind of karate-esque moves. It introduces Fishman Karate, which will come back later.
Way later.
I really like the thing where he takes Sanji all the way down, and then they go all the way back up, and Sanji breathes into his gills so he can get a breath of air and finish him off on land. It's really like the flow of that fight. He swims back down, he frees Luffy, but that's what I got for those.
Yeah, and so I wanted to give Usopp a special spotlight, which I never thought I would say.
Hey.
It's been no secret that since his introduction of like kind of the main 5, I've considered him the weaker character in the cast. Like, I love him as comic relief, and I don't dislike him at all. But up till now, I've felt like he didn't necessarily have the depth that our other guys did.
I was about to say what you meant by weaker, like physically, or because he's physically supposed to be weaker, but
no.
Bradley saw him as the weakest in both regards.
Yeah. But oh man, after this fight, holy shit! He fights Fish Hisoka. I don't remember the guy's actual name, but
His
he
name
looks
is
like
Chu.
Yeah, he looks like Hisoka with fish
He
lips.
really doesn't, but okay.
No, dude, I'm sticking by it.
Sure.
Like this fight of this is one of the one moments in One Piece so far that's just the most like alarm, like wee woo character development's happening right now. Like, like oh my god. So up till now, Usopp has always kind of battled on a formula, like through a flow chart, where it's like first try to intimidate the enemy with a bluff. If it
Yes.
works, which it pretty much never does, then good for you. When the bluff fails, you try and attack. If the attack fails, which it usually does, you run or you play dead. And I mean, technically, this has worked out for him. I mean, it's made Usopp survive up until now, but you know, he's not gonna get the big wins using these techniques.
Right.
It is still useful though to the team, especially here because what's useful about this technique is that it's stalled for time. Like if Usopp wasn't there, Zoro and Sanji would be fighting 3 guys instead of just 2.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a point where Usopp is like, he's willing to give up the fight because he's like, well, Luffy and Zoro and Sanji will take care of it, you know. So he's very aware that he could be sending Chu to go gang up on the others, and for a moment he's okay with it.
Yeah, and he kind of has to overcome that, right? Because when it gets to the point where he kind of does his ketchup packets to make himself look
So
dead,
good.
he's lying there on the ground, and Shu starts walking away, and he starts getting these flashbacks of things that other characters have said. Like he remembers Zoro saying that he would actually rather die than be defeated or just conceding this fight. And he remembers Nami having the resolve to stab herself instead of Usopp. And he remembers these dozens of townspeople who are all probably even weaker than Usopp coming to Arlong Park to fight, even though they're all well aware
They're gonna
that
die.
they will probably die.
Yeah.
But they resolve to do it anyway because they would rather die than not do this fight for Nami's sake. And so after he remembers these things, he gets this brief moment of just like overwhelming shame that he hasn't had the same resolve for his friends that they've had for him. And we just get like this, just like fire in his heart. And he's like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to fight this guy to the finish, even if it kills me. He gets that same attitude that Zoro has, that all these other people has. And you know what? He ends up fucking winning.
It's beautiful, dude. He becomes a Straw Hat in that moment for real.
It's crazy. And like Oda has a really good mind for when to play the comic relief card and when to be emotionally serious.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of other writers would have been tempted to have Usopp make that great character realization and then have him be struck down immediately because it's funny. But Oda realized that, you know, in this moment, this is where we needed to take Usopp.
He needed a moment of bravery. And I really like how he gets up and he starts yelling at Chu to piss him off. Like he's not even kind of coy about it.
Yeah.
He calls him like freaky fish lips or some shit. Like even
Yeah, he does. And boy, does that boy have lips.
Yeah, it's,
Oh, God.
they're both lippy boys, so it's
Lippy
a good matchup.
boys.
Solid DSL fighting going on there.
Big DSL fish fight. So
God.
another good part of the fight is how Usopp decides to take the fight at that point with the bluff, with the oil, and he sets him on fire, and he just gets a fucking hammer. He just goes to town.
Yeah, and I like it because I think Usopp after this fight kind of has a new niche where it's not that same flowchart anymore. It's, you know, he's still kind of that trickster kind of
Fighter.
battle style, but it's more aggressive.
Aggressive trickster.
Yeah, and I like it a lot. I'm just really proud of my boy, especially because after he wins, he runs back to where everyone else is, and he's like, guys, I did it. I beat one of Arlong's officers all by myself. And at that moment, I really wanted to be in the story with him. Like, no, guys, he actually really did it. Be proud of him. Like, I wanted to be there.
They kind of brush him off. Like, it's expected for you to do it, dude. You're a Straw Hat. You had to do that.
It's your job.
But I'm really proud of my boy. I like him a lot.
I think this is the introduction of Usopp Rubber Band.
Oh my God!
What
Rubber
a
Band
good move! Yeah.
the ultimate move.
Wow, man, he's got such a fun moveset.
And it's funny because like he'll pull out the rubber band and he doesn't even fire it, and then people like these people who turn villages upside down are like flinching, like, no, please.
Such a strong move.
It's a great gag.
It's a 0 damage but very good combo starter.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I also like Chu, like just the power of his shots. There's that panel of him just peppering the forest and the trees with all these really strong water bullets, and it just looks really cool.
That's the thing. It always goes without saying that, like, just God, the art and the motion in One Piece is phenomenal. Like, even if there was an arc that I didn't like the story or characters at all, I would probably still enjoy reading it just because the art is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
People say that One Piece art is bad. I think they're mostly looking at anime, which it just doesn't translate when Toei does it a lot of the times. But I think it's more fair to say that Oda's art style is weird, but his actual ability to draw is incredible. His backgrounds, the way he does impact and motion. Bradley's been sending us some screenshots of like particularly really good panels.
He's a very. It's funny to say that they judge based off the anime, because his panels all have like an animation flow to them. Like they are designed for you to like see to go through everything very quickly. More or less, like you're supposed to, like a flip book, or like you're really kind of connecting all those like panels and pages together as like one flowing motion.
The way he does flow is incredible.
Yeah.
He's a genius.
I've never seen anyone who like can portray motion on a still 2D image as well as Oda can.
And he also just makes the act of reading a manga just enjoyable. The way he lays out his panels, the pacing, the flow.
And the page turn, man.
The page turns. You page turn into
Master of
Luffy
the page
punching
turn.
the shit out of Arlong. So good.
Yeah. That was something I severely missed when I was reading Bakuman, was that it just doesn't stand up to One Piece when it comes to like that reading flow. Like they're sometimes like extremely like blocked out, but like that never happens in One Piece, I feel.
Yeah. I mean, Oda might be the best at the technical part of manga.
He's a master of the craft.
It just also happens that he's the best at the writing part as well. So Bradley, what do we got next point-wise?
Okay. So after we kind of conclude our fights with the officers, or as the fights are wrapping up, Arlong presents Nami with kind of a crossroads. She really wants... He's like, here's the thing. I'm going to kill Zoro and Sanji no matter what. They hurt my officers. They have to die. Like, I'm sorry. Sorry, not sorry. But she kind of gives... He kind of gives Nami a choice. He's like, you can either just stop now, come work for me. I'll let all the villagers live. You'll never want for anything. You know, everything goes back to how it was. Or you guys can keep fighting, try to save your friends, and I'll kill everybody. And this is a really tough call. And I kind of sat here for a while thinking about what the morally right choice is, which there's no way to really do that. But that's part of what makes this moment great. Like, she can't just let Zoro and Sanji die after they risked everything for her. But the alternative is going back to this same routine she's been doing for 8 years. She has been working for a monster. The village people are extorted or killed, and it's a tough call, but she decides that she's just going to fight, and the village people are going to fight with her. Not the band, the people from...
Doesn't she say, I'm sorry, everyone, as she makes the decision?
Yeah, she's like, I'm sorry, but you're just going to have to fight with me. Because I think she finally realized that working for Arlong the past 8 years has accomplished nothing for anybody.
Yeah, no, because if she gets back in this loop, there's a very, very, very high chance he's just gonna find some other way to dick her near, like, when she reaches her goal again.
Yeah, it's like a kind of a recurring thing in this arc is this attitude towards what they have, like their duty. Much like Zoro and Usopp, she reaches this point where she's like, honestly, dying would be preferable to just conceding at this point. She's like, I'm just going to fight you with all I got. And, you know, these past 8 years, she didn't know this, but she now knows that all the villagers are in this with her. They all came there on their own behalf to potentially die for her. So she's like, you know what? If you want to, I'll let you. Like, for so long she just carried like the burden of everybody on her back.
Yeah.
And that's really noble of her, but the village wants to return the favor. So, like on one hand, someone might interpret it as selfish to let the villagers die when she could save them all instead, but I still view this as like a huge growth for Nami. She finally accepted that it's okay to get help. And she accepted that earlier when she asked Luffy for help, but I think this moment is cementing that, this is who Nami is now.
It's really also opening up to like it's okay to have people that you actively rely on and trust. Because that was Nami's big thing, was that she couldn't trust Zoro, and she couldn't like keep ties, or Zoro, with Luffy in the gang, and just couldn't keep ties with anybody. Like this is the arc where she learns that like there are people out there that I can legitimately trust and know that they will take care of me and help me, and she goes through that character growth.
And there's one more layer to this, and it's the fact that it shows that even though she distanced herself from the town, she was never alone in those 8 years. They always loved her. They always cared for her, and they were always on her side, even as she was doing like these bad, atrocious things, aligning with the pirates. And
it's crazy.
It's just really good, and they're all on the same page now. They're all gonna go die together. Yeah.
It's just man, like Nami and Usopp are two characters that just came out of Arlong Park, just changed on a fundamental level.
Oh yeah.
And it's amazing. So let's see. Nami resolves to fight. We end up getting Luffy back. And so for my next like big note, it's gonna sound like I'm going off on a tangent, but I promise this is relevant.
No.
So I realized that this structure we kind of have in Arlong Park, and I'm sure future One Piece arcs, and it reminds me of the structure of the Saiyan saga of Dragon Ball Z. If you'll forgive me for comparing the mighty One Piece to Dragon Ball Z.
I mean, Dragon Ball Z is One Piece's biggest influence, so go for it.
So, like, our main boy, Luffy / Goku, they get taken out early, and our other members of the cast spend the majority of the arc fighting on, like, the little henchmen in one-on-one battles. And these battles don't feel wasted or like filler because they each kind of get their own little special moment to shine.
Mm-hmm.
And our baddies are surprised that these inferior beings are putting up such a good fight. But while the kind of little the weaker guys are doing better than expected, they know that they're ultimately going to be no match for Arlong or Vegeta. The end goal here is to survive long enough to get Luffy or Goku to recover and get back in the battle. And there's a reason I find this structure really interesting. It's kind of like, up to that point in the Dragon Ball series, it's always been about Goku. He's our hero. He's going to save the day.
Mm-hmm.
And like 90% of the action up to then was just always Goku wrecking people in Dragon Ball. In the Saiyan saga, he still gets to be the big cheese. He still gets to be the one who saves everybody, but we're treating everything differently. Rather than all the action focusing on him, the majority of the action is on the characters who wouldn't normally get the spotlight. They're the ones who would normally be on the sidelines cheering Goku on, and that's in fact what most of them did in Dragon Ball. So we get to focus on our other people, our main cast members, without taking away that position of power that Goku has. And he still gets the climax of the arc. He gets the big battle at the end. And it's kind of the same thing here. We don't always want One Piece to just be Luffy fucks everyone up and his friends cheer on the sideline. Unfortunately, that's not what One Piece is at all. The fights that Luffy and his friends get are just as important or more important even than like the big climactic fight.
For sure. And it eventually evolves beyond that, where it's like Luffy, his role is the captain / problem solver, right? He's the big muscle. But in a lot of future arcs, it starts becoming like other crew members are making really important plays. They're not necessarily focal fights, but they're doing such important things or getting such important character development where it's like, yeah, everyone's getting some love.
Yeah, like the best way I can describe it, to bring it down to the measly level of like a football game, because everyone here loves sports.
Everyone here loves football.
Yo, football's awesome.
Yo, football's
no, American football.
Oh yeah. Ew.
No, that's the one I'm talking. What do you?
Yeah, no, it's great.
Just
I love
because I'm
it.
Brazilian doesn't mean I mean football.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, but essentially, like, Luffy, you can describe Luffy as like the star quarterback or running back, the one that like makes those big plays and everyone cheers for. But really, like, Luffy would never like kind of be set up in those situations without the rest of his crew members.
Yeah.
Without his linemen, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're the
you like,
offensive line, and Zoro's like the quarterback, if anything.
yeah,
How
and or
restricted
like having a running back, or just in general, like they each have their own part, and they're very important to like the overall goal of what the team, what the crew is trying to do, that island or arc or whatever of what's happening.
To the point where like even if a character is not getting a fight that arc, they are getting something if they're in that arc. They are gonna get their moment, and
Yeah.
it really helps them all seem worth it, even if they're not as strong as Luffy, but they all have their role to play.
Yeah, we didn't have any cheerleaders. You know, like everybody played a part in making this happen.
Yeah.
Everyone, like there's a crew member that comes in later, and Willer, you know who I'm talking about.
Jesus, the ultimate MVP.
Yeah, who like literally went on like who just pulled it like a hat trick over everybody, and like essentially like made this whole what would have been like a essentially for the crew like this huge like roadblock or like
Impossible task that they needed to do.
yeah, or something they would have to like eventually come back to do, and he did it, and you're like, oh my god, oh, like the amount of relief you feel after that is amazing.
And it's not even like there's combat involved, but it's not even like a combat task. It's just like a, oh my god, you clutched so hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, look forward to the Straw Hats being great characters and being useful.
That's one thing I really like about One Piece, and I think Oda has figured that out, is that you can have your side characters that aren't like not physically, they're all like pretty physically strong, but in terms of like not being as strong as Luffy or not being your key, like your star player, and have them something that's really meaningful and impactful to do that's still very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And really kind of attaches you to them and really appreciates it whenever someone else is going to do something, and you're like, okay, I'm on board. Let's do it. And it makes that part just more engaging to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. I think we can move on to the next point if we're ready for it.
Please, Bradley, I've been born ready.
All right. So we now have Luffy versus Arlong.
Yeah.
God, this action, holy shit, it's amazing. This fight is also where, in the entirety of the 30 or so chapters that comprise Arlong Park, this is where we actually get the majority of Arlong's dialogue.
It's true.
And man, I actually really like his dialogue.
Arlong is a cool villain, man.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make a comparison that's gonna sound really weird here for a minute.
Here we go.
But just bear with me here.
No.
The certain facets of Arlong's philosophy vaguely remind me of my favorite JoJo's antagonist, Yoshikage Kira.
Really?
You hear me out here.
Okay, let's go. Let's do it.
These guys are both total monsters. Okay, they do these horrible things, but I don't think either of them actually really believe they're doing anything wrong. The thing is, Arlong, he it's not even just him being an asshole. He just genuinely does not view humans as people, if that makes sense.
Dude, you're super right, and you don't know how right you are until later.
Way later.
Because Arlong, he clearly is not incapable of feeling empathy. Like, he feels great empathy for his guys. Whenever he's genuinely upset that his, and I quote, beloved comrades were slain by these people he views as nothing.
I love that line. That I remember reading through that and be like, man,
yeah,
that
when
is.
he said beloved comrades, I'm like, whoa, we're not just dealing with a generic asshole here.
He's not some guy that would. You know, the worst kind of villain is the one who shoots his underling because like Morgan. You know, that's what Morgan would do.
Yeah, because like whenever he said that line, I realized that up till now we've pretty much only seen Arlong in the context of treating humans like shit. But then you realize that these fishmen have been with him for decades, and he probably loves them. And to him, they aren't disposable creatures like humans are. And like he really makes it clear how horrible of an act he thinks humans killing fishmen are.
Oh my god.
But much like Kira, he just has this warped view of the world where he has his own sense of justice, and to him, he's like, how can you guys not see that you're being the assholes? He's like, just leave me alone and let me fuck up these humans. Like, he just doesn't understand why they don't see things the way he does. And he even like checks stuff off on a list. He's like, no, like, you're inherently inferior. You can't breathe underwater. I'm stronger than you. Like, in his mind, this
you don't
is
got
just
a
a
thick
fact.
nose. You can't take your teeth out and regrow them.
I
immediately.
really like that part of the fight where he's just showing like all these cool techniques that he can do to prove a point. He's like, you can't throw water like a bullet. Look at me with my cool teeth claws. You can't like bite down through this thing. Like, he's showing himself to be on paper superior.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
And we take it even further because, you know, Arlong takes his teeth out for his little hand teeth attack. And Luffy uses a fishman as a shield, and Arlong gets really upset. And it's not like how dare you defy me? How dare you not die when I'm trying to kill you? It's how dare you make one of my fishmen get hurt by my own attack? Like, he's just so mad. Like, so whenever he's saying this stuff about how fishmen are superior, that's not just villain taunting. That's not coming from a position of arrogance. He truly believes it.
Dude,
And
you're making
crazy.
me realize that there's a lot to Arlong that I didn't quite piece together, but just know that like there is more depth to this that I think you're really gonna like.
Yeah, but it's about like 4 or 5 hot minutes away.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like at least 5 hot minutes.
so, you know, as I go through One Piece, I really try to dissect everything I can out of it.
You
So,
should, because
so I don't know if like someone just like watching the anime would have gotten all this same stuff, or someone speed reading the manga. But I don't know. Joe speed read, and he probably got all this. So
No, dude, you're doing great. This
Yeah.
is the best analysis on YouTube. All
Yeah.
5 viewers know.
confirmed.
one thing about One Piece is that this is like the one like manga series or anything that and it took me, oh god, when did it take me? It might have taken me until the Water 7 or just past Alabasta arc, where like it's just like, no, everything is put in there for a reason. That
Mhm.
every like they're like you want to like Oda doesn't just like do something just because he wants to or just is thinking in the moment. Like he specifically like phrases things and put things in certain places and says and drops certain names because they relate to something else in this world or adventure.
Which is cool because Bradley's going into the, so when I went into it, of course, I was a dumb kid. I went in watching 4Kids and
Yeah.
I watched some AMVs and I bought some GameCube games and I eventually read the manga and I read it really fast and I had bad scanlations. So like when I went in the first time, you don't expect One Piece to be as deep as it gets.
No.
So
Yeah, like, you know, I finally started reading it because I hear you guys talk about it, and it has all these elements I like. And like before I heard these things, in my mind, One Piece was always just like, oh, it's a '90s shonen. It's just, you know, punch hard, yay, we won,
Mhm.
friendship. So, but it's so much more than that.
I mean, the first few like arcs are like that.
But even then, Bradley got so much out of them that is super valid, and that's the thing, right? I went in and I read it as that. I didn't see past that at the time, but
Yeah.
on my recent reread, I've been slowly rereading it and going through it with Bradley and Joe. It's like, my God, he was really ahead of the time, setting up these big things that will only pay off later.
He knew what he was doing.
So
I
in
feel
the
like-
end, my point here is that Bradley's going to get a really fun enjoyment out of One Piece, the kind that I only get on a reread or something, or like reading discussions. Bradley's going to get it on the first go because he's looking at it at that level.
Hey,
Yeah, that's something else that like I realized too, because I mentioned it with Mihawk. Like if I was reading this week to week and Mihawk showed up and just basically interrupted that arc, I like would have been just like not all about it, because I'm like, why is this random dude just showing up in the middle of this arc? This doesn't mean anything, and then he leaves. This is bullshit. But when I was that was me thinking in the context of like him if I was reading week to week or watching it like week to week. But then like from a bigger point of view, when I was reading it and Mihawk shows up and he like nearly kills Zoro, and it's like, all right, I'll see you later, gang. And the Seven Warlords, the Caesars drop. I'm just like, okay, this guy is fairly important, so he'll show up again later. I should keep that in mind, because I knew the series is, I think at the time, like 930 chapters deep,
Yep.
and so
All
there's
right.
no way he show up. And man, does he show up!
Yep. Well, Bradley, what you got next? What we got?
Yeah, so that's kind of like the main thing I wanted to focus on as far as like dialogue
And
in the fight
Arlong.
itself. Like holy shit, we get really cool moves. But like both Luffy and Arlong pull out amazing things here, like
Finger
Gum
net
Gum
and spear and shark darts and the
Jesus.
tooth attack. Just fun stuff all
It's
around.
all really cool. Like
Arlong's sawtooth sword is one of my favorite weapons in any fiction. I think it looks so fucking rad.
it does look rad.
I really like the design of that weapon. And the
like-
fact that he just punches into the building and gets it out and just rips it out of the building and starts fighting with it.
And then, like, between them stretching Luffy's neck earlier and Gum Gum Fingernet and Gum Gum Shield, I'm like, okay, we're not even, like, we haven't even scratched the surface of everything that's possible with Luffy's abilities. Because
Yeah.
the thing is, every time he does one of these things, in retrospect, it seems so obvious. Like, oh, of course he can do that. But I just, hadn't thought of it yet.
Yeah,
So-
that goes places.
Very excited. So we kind of go forward. They're jumping around the building. They're cutting it up. We get to Nami's room that she basically slaved away in for 8
Man.
years. And Luffy as soon as he knows what the room is, he knows what he has to do. And this kind of goes back to Luffy's emotional maturity and just deep understanding of his friends and what they need. Like, as soon as he knows what this room is, he's like, I have to destroy it.
Yep.
It's like, this place is not good for Nami.
Immediately, just like that.
And, I was really worried because I was like, oh my God, like, what if Nami's like, oh God, I worked on this for 8 years. But as soon as she knows what he's doing, she cries and she's like, thank you. And, every time I see Nami cry, I cry. So,
Like clockwork.
oh man. So, God, that moment was really good. And then, like a few pages later, we get the ending climax. We get the most powerful Gum Gum battle axe we've seen. And Jesus Christ destroys the entire building.
Kicks through the whole building, and Arlong hits him with a freaking devastating attack with the spinning bite with like a jaw like Arlong. If that's coming at you, and it gets Luffy in the side, that
Shark.
insane amount of pain. But he just powers through it, kicks him through the building. All of Arlong Park goes down.
And I was like, man, if that did not kill Arlong, then nothing will. And you know what? Well, I don't think it actually killed him.
It did not. I will
But I was
say.
like, if that does not end this fight, then nothing will. So
But like you said, One Piece fights are battles of will, and that he destroyed Arlong physically, destroyed his building that stands for oppression of the human race and his power. He just takes it all down with one attack.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And man, pretty soon after that, they go to celebrating, and I'm right there with them. I'm like, fuck yeah, like their lives have
Party.
been ruined by this guy forever. So I'm just very happy to see them all free. We get several moments throughout the party. Luffy and Zoro obviously have to be healed up. Usopp gets praised for killing the officer, or not killing, whatever, you know what I mean?
Murdering a man.
Yeah. Usopp gets praised for his role in the fight, and I was very happy. I was like, yeah, he deserves it. I mean, he kicked ass. And then we kind of get the background on, oh my God, Nojiko getting the tattoo to make Nami feel better
So
about being forcibly tattooed was just such a sweet thing.
Nojiko's
And then
great.
pretty shortly after that, we see the reveal about Nami's new tattoo with the tangerine and the pinwheel. God, I think probably the most tears I've had so far is the reveal about Ginzo, why he wears the pinwheel.
Oh, it's so sweet. He's worried all this time for not because Nami used to like it as a kid, and it's just a symbol of their relationship. So good.
And this is another technique that I love Oda for because like One Piece just kind of has inherently goofy character designs sometimes, and throughout this entire arc, throughout Arlong Park, Luffy repeatedly talks about Genzo's pinwheel, like, "Hey, that's funny. I want one." Like, blah 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 blah. And if he had never made, I always assumed it was just for comic relief, and it kind of is. If he hadn't repeatedly make those jokes, I probably wouldn't have noticed the pinwheel, just because everyone kind of has silly character designs.
Yeah.
But
Same.
because he repeatedly points that out, it's conscious in my mind. And then when we get to this point, I'm like, oh my god, that's why he has the iconic pinwheel.
The iconic.
Iconic.
Like Oda is such a good technique at subtly keeping it in your mind without going like, hey, this is going to be really important. So man,
Oh man, man, I can't wait, Joe. I can't wait.
Yeah.
yeah, you're gonna get this 10 out of 10 analysis on every chapter, my man. So
Fucking better.
It's good.
It's
Man,
like,
and
keep you around for.
That being said, Luffy freaking out about the pinwheel every time he sees it is still one of my favorite gags.
oh, it's hilarious.
So funny.
But as soon as Luffy didn't die from drowning, as soon as he's conscious again, he's like, "Hey, where's your pinwheel?" And he's like, "That is not important, right now, Luffy. This is not what we're doing
And
right
the
now."
thing is, too, is something I've realized with the Oda is that he interjects, like he will have these moments of very long, not very long, but these kind of like exposition dumps, and he interjects these like little tiny bits of humor that don't feel too random, but are there to really break up the tension of the scene and help, keep everything kind of a little bit happier, on the good side, and kind of remind you that that's a little fun adventure we're going on here. Don't worry about it. We're just murdering everybody, and there's,
Don't
bunch
think
of
about the
other shit
darkness. It's perfectly paced, and those exposition heavy chapters are 10 out of 10. So it's like,
yeah. Will and I just got one
woo,
last week. Oh man, that was some good shit.
feed me more, Daddy Yoda, please.
Yeah.
All right, Bradley, let's get the
as-
wrap up.
As far as wrapping up Arlong Park, for stuff like the tattoo and the pinwheel, I talked about it. I didn't really take a lot of notes because the stuff I like to take notes on and analyze is the stuff that people wouldn't necessarily get if they were speed reading or if they didn't try to analyze what they read. But like the stuff with the pinwheel, no matter what, no matter how fast you're going through, you're going to be like, oh my god, that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't feel the need to point out how amazing that is because it just is.
But I gotta talk about it.
Getting her tattoos is another great moment, at least for me.
Would that be Nami's departure?
What do you mean?
Well, Joe said there was another great moment.
No. The part where Nami's having these flashbacks and Nami is crying in the corner because she has to get a tattoo for Arlong's pirates, and then her sister ends up getting her own tattoos to make her feel better. I'm like, oh.
And it just touches your heart.
My heart.
Yeah.
And then the last big moment we get after that on the island is, it's kind of weird because everyone's saying goodbye to the Straw Hats. Nami's not there yet, and everyone's like, oh, well, it's just like she's got to hurry up. You guys are about to leave. And she's like sprinting towards the boat. She's like, guys, start sailing. And they're like, what the fuck? And everyone's like, no, we want to say goodbye. And you have all these options running through your head. Like, okay, is there something dangerous chasing her? Like, does she just not want to say goodbye? Like, she's scared of goodbyes. And she jumps on the ship and you see all the wallets fall out and you're like, God damn it, Nami. And it's so good because it's so like her. And like, it kind of shows that we've had huge growth, but this is still going to be the same Nami that you know and love. And, at first all the village people were like, hey, give me my wallet back. But, they still love her, and they also kind of realize that she left them with 100 million berries. So they're like, okay, whatever.
I guess it's fair.
Yeah. So, and then they take off, and man, Arlong Park was an easy 5 out of 5. Like,
yeah,
holy
boy.
shit.
Yeah, Willer and I were just, like, there are some arcs in One Piece where Will and I will look at each other and be like, there's no way Bradley's not going to like this chapter, like this arc, like at all. Like, Arlong Park is one of those.
Yeah, like every once in a while in manga, like that one, you know what it is in Steel Ball Run.
Woo.
We'll talk to each other and just be like, there's no way that someone would give this less than a 5 out of 5. Like it's
No
just
way.
it's too good.
101%.
So, and then I read one more chapter, which it's kind of like a step. I don't know if you'd call it a stepping stone chapter. It's just kind of like transitioning us from one arc to the next.
I think we call those ripple chapters because it was a bounty reveal, right? And then you get to see all the characters.
Yeah, I like that ripple because it's kind of showing the effect that Luffy's had on the world up till now.
Yes, those are some of the best chapters. That one chapter where you were like, "Yo, I heard there was a big chapter in One Piece this week because it was top of r/all." That was a ripple chapter.
Yeah, and it's really fun. We just kind of get to step away and see how the rest of the world is impacted by our main cast.
Because the most beautiful part of One Piece and its world building is that the world is moving alongside the Straw Hats.
Yep.
Yeah. Especially like with an event going on now in the current arc.
Yes.
That we know that's happening while all the events of Straw Hats happening. You're just like, what the fuck is going to happen? But yeah.
So we get to see probably the most of the Navy we've seen up to this point. Luffy has a price on his head because that little douchebag mouse captain who was working with Arlong, he got his widow feelings hurt. So he's like, you know what? Luffy's the most dangerous pirate in the world. So, or at least the East Blue. So, yeah, Luffy is a wanted man. Oh yeah, and then our crew heads to Rogueport, where Gold Roger was both born and killed. And man, the city immediately looks cool, and I like that we're heading here because it's probably like a rite of passage. It's like a pilgrimage for Luffy. He's like, I have to go there, like, you know. It's very cool. We see a sword girl that Zoro takes interest in, but we don't know why he's so interested yet. It might just be because he's like, oh, hey, a fellow swordsman, swordswoman, whatever. But then, oh my God, we get to see like my two favorite boys in the world on some island somewhere is what I think it said. Yeah. We see my favorite man, Mihawk, walking through some of these like final boss looking ass pirates. And he's just like, hey, this guy just kind of reminded me of stories you used to tell. Whatever. I'm not here to kill you guys. Just thought you might be interested. And so it's Captain Shanks.
Yay!
Hey.
And like, man, I didn't think we'd see him again for a very long time. But
no, man,
here he is.
Shanks is important in the world. You're gonna see him from time to time.
Shanks has been like heavily foreshadowed.
Yeah, and it's just like it's so cool because like I loved Shanks' reaction to seeing Luffy's bounty, and it didn't surprise me at all. He's just like, "Oh hey, Luffy's finally out there, huh?" Like he's not surprised at all. He's proud, but he's not surprised, and it's just great.
And it's been like 8 years since he's seen Luffy, so it's like in the back of his mind, he's been waiting for that moment.
Oh yeah, like he's been waiting for it. He always knew it would be coming. He was just that confident in Luffy, and also we see Luffy's hometown right after that, and they're all happy that this notorious pirate came from their town because they love Luffy.
As
and
I recall, the mayor doesn't like it, right?
Yeah, the mayor's like, oh, well, I don't want our town to be known for this, but all these other people are like, well, you know,
kind of cool.
Like, you know, he's more wanted than Arlong, but he's not Arlong. We know him. This is his dream. He's not a monster. And they're also like, oh, we're gonna be famous. So yeah, that's as far as I got.
All right, I very much look forward to you reading Rogue Town, Rogueport, whatever. Isn't it?
I also look forward to it.
I don't remember what they call it in the Viz version.
Some people know it as Luge Town too, because R's and L's in Japanese. You know how it goes. And yeah, I can't wait because you're getting to the start of One Piece.
No. All right.